Life is rarely simple. We often want life and people to fit into neat categories. But Ecclesiastes invites us into something different. It reminds us that life is richer, more beautiful, and more mysterious than our categories can contain.
Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast where the clergy women of the First United Methodist Church of San Diego share their musings on scripture, theology, and what it has to do with us.
Welcome to Perspectives. I'm Reverend Hannah. I'm here with Benicio Casillas. Welcome, Benicio.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Today we're beginning a new series called Imago Dei 2.0. This is the second iteration of the Image of God sermon series we had last year, where we will celebrate the image of God reflected in many lives of people. And as we prepare to celebrate Pride, this will be released the day after Pride Parade. I'm delighted to have you here with us to hear about your life experiences, and you're part of our beloved River community, our LGBTQ ministry in this church. Together we'll hear his story and explore how Scripture invites us to recognize the divine image in every person. So when people think of Ecclesiastes, they usually think of the words, "For everything there is a season." It's one of the Bible's most quoted line, and here's the irony. Those beautiful verses often end up on greeting cards and coffee mugs. There's season. Well, the book itself is anything but simple. So this book questions easy answers. It pushes against certainty, refuses simplistic theology, and it's one of the Bible's most unconventional books because it resists being neatly put into categories. So perhaps that's exactly why it has something to teach us today. And let's hear these familiar words with fresh ears. So I'll be reading Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what's planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful. This book, I love Ecclesiastes, and this is one of my favorite books in the Bible. And it gives room for mystery. It gives room for doubts and questions and everything in between. And it doesn't sound like Proverbs, where Proverbs often give answers to people. Mm-hmm. It often say, if you live wisely, life will generally work.
Yeah.
But this book says, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't go the way you always expect. And it doesn't work as a reward system. It doesn't erase contradictions. It sits with those contradictions. And this book asks us to trust God even when life refuses to fit into our categories.
Absolutely.
And many queer theologians have found resonance in Ecclesiastes. I don't know if you were aware of that. Not because it explicitly talks about LGBTQ people, but because it challenges rigid assumptions and makes room for complexity. And maybe that's faithful theology and not having every answer to our questions, but trusting God within the mystery and within those two polar extremes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about yourself. Well, has there been a time when you felt like your life didn't fit the categories that other people expected?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and hearing the story, is my first time in some way, and I think that's the beauty about it. It's like the growth, right? It's not linear, which goes into my life. Definitely, I'm a trans man. So for the first 27 years of my life, I was, either presented as a woman or believed I was a woman, right? Growing up, there was always like a seed that something was different, but I continued to live as a girl, being my mother's one and only child, and being one and only daughter. My first grandchild of the immediate family. So my grandmother was very happy, and being able to explore that wasn't really an option because I grew up in a Catholic household, and eventually it was going to church in a more conservative church. You had to follow this role.
The Proverbs.
Yes.
Like that one model.
Yeah, you have to follow it. You cannot question it. You cannot question God. And that was something that I was very upset about because we're created in God's image and God got it wrong. However, I'm not supposed to question God. So I buried it a lot and didn't have the courage until later on in my adult life where I took a leap of faith and moved to a different city without knowing anybody, without family, friends, and to reinvent myself. And so yeah, I have some experience with that for sure.
Wow. And you talked about living as a girl. How was the first 27 years of your life? How did you feel?
Well, that's the funny thing about this journey, because it's not linear. And so there were times where I did believe that's where I was supposed to go, where I'm supposed to grow up and, I am Mexican, so you're supposed to have a quinceañera, and then you're supposed to get married, have children, everything that's like one after the other. I did have boyfriends growing up, and I really much did like them, right? But there's always something like in the back of my mind and in my heart where something wasn't fitting. It was not aligning. And so as that like voice started getting louder and louder because it was yearning to come out. It's like, imagine if you saw yourself, and this is how I saw myself, as, buried under ice and just crying out to be free. And that was the voice of me, like, you're actually a man, like, it, but I haven't accepted it.
Yeah, I just cannot imagine the weight of the ice, the coldness, and your inability to move around and live under that ice. And I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Some years later. So you mentioned that your life in your 27 years wasn't linear. And that's what I believe this book is about. It's not linear, and there is a time for everything. And this is not telling us that life is divided into neat opposites. It describes the fullness of being human between birth and death, and between weeping and laughing, between silence and speaking, and between mourning and dancing. And these are poetic pairs, a way of saying human life contains the whole range of experiences. Notice what the author never says. He never says, or she never says, or they never say, one season is holier than any other season. Instead, wisdom is leaning what this season requires. Something healing, something grieving, something sometimes speaking, and sometimes listening. Faith isn't escaping life's trouble. You have to sit with it, right? And it's learning how to live faithfully within those situations. So I have another question for you, if you are
Absolutely.
So what has the complexity of your life and the season of your life taught you about faith?
For me, the forefront, like faith wasn't, I believe it wasn't there. Because like I mentioned before, like, okay, I was created in the image of God, but yet, God got this wrong. So why am I supposed to believe this, right? And to talk about the different seasons of my life, right? So like I mentioned, I had boyfriends, and then I came out as a lesbian, so I started dating girls. Yeah, so I started dating girls, and to, really have that experience of coming out, and essentially the death of that thought of being married, having kids with the a cis man, right? But then also now coming out as trans. That was another death, another season that died, because, I'm not a lesbian. I'm a trans man, and I'm dating a cis woman. And there's a complexity there, too, because people automatically assume that my partner and I are, a heteronormative straight couple, which, in fact, it's more complex than that. There's more layers than that. And so, really, it was never linear. But I needed that leap of faith to get out of the box I was in, that I was outgrowing, and moving into a new state. I moved to Portland, Oregon, and becoming myself, right? And, I think about this because, like, there has to be, looking back on it, I thank God that it was God's plan for me to be there. Because the first night that I came out as trans, I met my fiance, Shayla.
Oh!
So I met her the same day I came out as trans. And, like, if that wasn't God's plan, I don't know what it was. But, there was that hope. There was that hope there, along with a friend of mine who gave me hope that it's okay to be yourself as well.
Wow. And you found those beautiful moments with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you do not fit into either extreme, but somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Right? Wow. And many LGBTQIA plus Christians know what it's like to be and move through many different seasons. And there may have been seasons of hiding, of questioning, of grief.
Absolutely.
And of fear.
Yeah.
And perhaps a season of finding words for who you truly are. And Ecclesiastes reminds us there's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Silence can sometimes protect you, protect us, but there's also comes a holy moment when telling the truth about yourself becomes an act of faith as well. So not because authenticity is easy, but because God's love calls us to be who we are in our own image, in God's own image. So my question for you now is, What gave you the courage to live more authentically? And
Yeah, I would, I want to give credit. It was my fiance Shayla, and a friend of mine in high school who was presented as male, right? They were female at birth, but they were part of the group who knew they were, a man all along, right? And so seeing them living their true self, even though I was still not accepting who I was, I was hiding who I was, gave me that hope that I can get to that point, right? And in some way, if you really think about it, that has to be God working in that, right? Because there's God in everybody we meet, and we attract those, people who either we are or who we want to be, and so maybe I wasn't quite listening or seeing God there, but that has to be something. It took a while for me to get there, but it was something. Same thing with me and my fiance. Having that safe person to accept me and all of me, even really before I can accept myself. And that's the thing about, I had to be quiet because of fear of losing my family. I'm Mexican, and it's not, POC families, it's not accepted to be gay or lesbian or be trans. So there is that safety piece. There is the alienation of by your own, maternal or your closest family. And for me to come really fully invest who I am, I finally felt safe to do so. And, I thank God that I did have the faith to go somewhere out of that box, because if I were to come back into where I grew up in that fear, essentially I'll just be going back into the closet, because I will be hiding who I am. And, it's really I want to say that just because, you can't fully be who yourself yet because of the safety part, because I see that, I understand that, especially in the world we're living in today, your safety is priority, but that doesn't mean that God loves you any less. God still loves you.
Yes. Yes, and you just nailed it. You're talking ahead of me. One of the dangers in religious world is believing that God only loves one version of us, that one expected box.
Yeah.
But Scripture tells another story. Every human being bears God's image, and you, me, everyone else, and throughout our lives, we continue discovering what that means.
Yeah.
And the image of God is always unfolding in us. So the image of God is not something we earn, and it's not something we lose either. It's not limited by race, gender, and age, ability, any other human categories. God's image, the image of God is a divine gift for each one of us.
Yeah.
And each of us reflects that image differently. And together we reveal more of God than any one of us can ever do. And so I have the last set of questions here. What does made in the image of God mean to you today?
Well, yeah, today, it's really to accept all of you, even the part of you that still is in hiding, because that's still you. And I want to say made in the image of God, that has a different meaning to me now than before, because it took a while to get there. The journey wasn't linear. It was scary at times, for sure. The thought of losing family, the thought of losing everything that I knew. But now it's even if that were to go away, I still have my faith. And I still know that, like, I was not created in a mistake. Like, I was a loving image of God in the form of, like, Benicio, you know? And so meeting others who also are getting away from putting themselves in a box, you know? Love meeting you too, you know? Love seeing God in you.
Oh.
And that's the thing about pride. It's like, you know, not only being proud of yourself, but of others. When we take a look at, like, our generations before, like, you know, I have 2 gay uncles. You know, 2 gay uncles. And it was just, I don't have a memory of them coming out, but it was just accepted. And it kind of felt like a don't ask, don't tell in the family. But there was, like, seeds starting to, like, okay, be planted, right? We know they're gay. And then I came out. It was handled a little differently. And, of course, the consequence of that was, you know, my grandmother was very opposed to it. But that starts to open the door, right? And I have, you know, a lesbian cousin and a trans woman cousin. Like, it just, you know, it starts to, like, have a ripple effect. And so, you know, I love seeing that. I love seeing God in them, too.
Yes, it wasn't just like one way or the other.
Yeah.
It wasn't cisgender woman or cisgender man. There are a variety of people reflecting the image of God. And I'm glad that you found God's presence and God's image in your own fabulous self all those years. And this is a good season to celebrate the diversity of divine image in everyone, especially in this Pride Month, and a season to confess where we've confused conformity with holiness, a season to remember that God's image has always been far more expansive than our categories, right?
Yeah.
And because every authentic life reveals something unique about the Creator, God. Every story, every journey, and every part of your seasons, and every person in your family and friends. So maybe we continue to expand the image of God.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we have the rhetoric of, like, you know, you are not God's image, like, people don't realize that, how the effect of that is. You know, especially in the community, right, where we're battling mental illness and substance abuse, right? Because they feel, and I feel, because I was, you know, I have mental health issues, and I am a sober person, because I felt like I was let down, or I was, you know,
Not accepted.
Exactly, not accepted, that I'm not worthy of even being in the same sentence as God because of everything that was told to me, right? Going to a conservative Catholic church where Prop 8 was, you know, on the ballot, and, you know, remembering the church saying, like, you know, do not, you know, vote for it, right? Because that is essentially, like, evil. And so, you know, the more that people understand and love themselves and see that, you know, God is there for them, you know, a lot of the community can move away from that, you know, especially, like, I've seen around, and I, and again, experienced myself too. So.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you and I and our church will continue to celebrate the many images of God reflected in all people.
Absolutely.
Starting with this Pride Week and then moving on to different parts of the world.
That's what I love about church. I mean, I came to church 3-4 months ago now, to this church. I mean, you know, was testing out the waters, different, but this one really called out to me because I felt included, right? It's not like a, you know, oh, this is where so-and-so, like the group of, you know, men who love men or women who love women, like, you know, whereas I can, you know, go out to clubs and there's like girls' night and guys' night. And so you feel a little bit excluded even within the community. Whereas church here, like, you know, everybody is welcome.
Aww.
And sometimes it sounds like a cliche, but like you really feel welcome. I really feel welcome and loved.
I am delighted to hear. Church, did you hear him? This is a good moment for us to be reminded that we welcomed you, right, in a loving way. So I'm glad that you are here and you're making us even become better church because you are here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here and to share your stories and your experiences.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Before posing the discussion questions, I would love to give a big shout out to Lemby for joining us on Patreon. And thank you, Lemby, and I invite others to join us as well. Before we close our conversation, let me offer you a few questions for discussions. Instead of thinking in either or framework, Ecclesiastes invites us to notice the whole landscape of life in between two polar extremes. So as you reflect this week, I would like you to consider those questions. Where in your life have you been thinking in either or categories? What might become possible if you imagined a little wider spectrum of possibilities? The next question is, this book names two extremes like weeping and laughing, silence and speaking. So where do you find yourself somewhere in between those two extremes today? And the last question is, how has someone's story helped you see God or the image of God in a way that you hadn't seen before? I hope you engage in a conversation with your friends and whoever else is around you, and hope you enjoy this episode of Perspectives. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit fumcsd.org.